prayed, and I was crying, and I just said, Lord, they're going to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing here very soon. Like, I don't know where to start. Like, help me. And within that first week, I had 6 other families that walked up to me, and at some point said, hey, new guy, like, do you need some help? And if anybody said help, I said, yes. And so we gathered together, we called ourselves a dream team, and for 9 months, we met every Wednesday night. And we dreamed up a church together. I didn't go in there with any type of an agenda of saying, this is what we're going to be and this is how it's going to. I said, God, I asked for help. I'm going to be smart enough to listen. Mm-hmm. And what we did was we started with 2 questions. We said, what would be a church you would be excited to invite somebody to? Like that you could not wait. Like, you got to come see this church. And what would be a church that someone with no church background would feel comfortable and want to come back? And we put these big white sheets all over the room. And I put preaching, hospitality, every category, kids, everything you could think of. And I gave them markers and I said, what would answer those 2 questions for you? A church you would be excited to invite somebody to, and a church that someone with no church background would want to come back. And I let them write stuff. And there's a couple things that I had to clean up, being like, we can't do that, But I also listened a lot. And I was smart enough to say, God, I asked for help, and God brought me an unbelievable, we had a guy that started his own business and grew it to incredible things. We have, incredible leaders all throughout here. And I listened to the room, and we dreamed up this church together, and it was Grace Hill. We launched 9 months later. We went to the church, these 7 families, we started it, and we went to the church and we said, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is our name, who wants to come with us? A handful of people came, and so we started with 43 kids and 57 adults. It was our first service. We had a perfect 100 at our first service. And what we said was this: we need to be a church, because we went down to the ARC network. They plant a lot of churches, and what we learned from them was this. They said, the reason why somebody stays at your church more than 2 months, only 30% of the time it will be because of the preaching, 30% of the time the music. But they said, when we asked people if they made 2 friends at their church, 84% of the time, they stayed more than 2 months. And so we need to be a church where people are going to meet people.
Ark Hill.
They're going to connect. We're going to make relationships. We're going to build our whole church around this. And so we worship at tables. So we have 8-person tables, and people come, they put their coffee and donuts down. The kids can sit there and do little doodling things and stuff like that. And we worship at tables. And we said we need to be a place. All of our meetings, everything starts with, let's start talking about life. Let's share life. That's how we do it. And so we built around relationships. And like I said, we started, we saw immediately, that really take off. That people, at first when they walked in with tables, they were like, I don't know about this. I have to sit at a table with somebody. And I can't tell you how many times there's been a husband and wife that sit at a table. And, and I'll say, like, hey, we're going to be pretty full, so you need to invite somebody to sit with you at your table. And, I'll see the husband going. And then sure enough, somebody will come and sit at the table, and the wife's like, yeah, come on. They meet each other, and then after the service, as I wait at the door and people are leaving, I'll see them talking for another 10 minutes, and then the next week when they show up, who they sit with? The person that they were there with. And so it works. Build relationships. Help them build relationships. And so that's really where we got it going. And we have our 9 core values, and I could go through all that. But when we see this happening, we started with this. We started in a little wedding venue. We were there for about 3 years, and we continued to grow. And then one day we were at a board meeting, and we found out that it went under. It went bankrupt because it was a giant Ponzi scheme. And so we had a month to move, and we had to move like 20 minutes away, and we moved to a golf course. And they took us in, and we were worried, is everybody going to move with us? They did. And we continued to grow at this golf course, but it was terrible for our kids. Like, it was good for worship, but our kids were literally in the lobby with little partitions up, and like golfers would come through with their beers and their language, and it was like, you're golf's kids, we were like, we got to find something new. We got to find what's next. And so, luckily, we started our Dream Big campaign. We got, by the grace of God, a guy that I did a funeral for his stepbrother 4 years earlier. He set up a meeting for us to talk about this land, and like, we go to the meeting, and I told him like 5 times, I was like, we can't afford this land. This is incredible land. It's in a prime location. Like, we can't afford this. We go to the meeting, and it was just like the movies. They like slid the paper across the table, and like we opened it, we're like, oh, like it was outrageous. And we walked out of the meeting, I was like, we can't afford this. And he said, I'll take care of it. You just raise some money for the building. And God just steps up time time again in our story. We have staff members, like we have stories, his wife, in our board meeting, we literally were writing the job description for an executive director. And that week, she set up a meeting with me, and I thought it was like gonna be like counseling or something, like, and she walked in and she was like, I do this for a living, and I think you need my help. And I was like, yeah, we do. We actually wrote a job description for you this week, and I actually wrote your name as one of the people we would like model this after. Like God just constantly stepped up in that way and continued to bless us. And so we were blessed with land, but in the meantime, it wasn't working for our kids, so we moved into a storefront. We had these 4 days. And then just this last Easter, so just, what was that, 10 months ago, we were able to move into our brand new building. This was so cool. This was like a week before we moved in. God put a rainbow right over our building. So that was awesome. So we opened on Easter. This is our lobby area. That's our worship area. That's the outside. So we've been on this journey. We started with 7 families 9.5 years ago. We're worshiping around 1,000 people right now. And we've seen incredible growth. We're adding staff. We're hiring 3 more staff in the next couple months. And all of this, once again, I'm not an expert. I can't tell you how you could do this. I'm just going to tell you what we wrestled with and what we came up with. And I'm hoping that will spark an interest in something for you. Any quick questions before we keep going? Is anybody hot?
Yes.
Okay, right back there, can you drop it? Just like a degree or 2? That would be great. And then we'll be freezing,
I
but,
thought you were saying hot about the training.
say that again.
I thought you were saying hot about the training and the presentation.
Yeah. I sweat all the time. So
You don't still worship at tables?
we do still worship at tables.
Oh.
So this is Easter. For Easter and Christmas, we go all chairs. Just to get everybody in. But we do still worship at tables. And we have chairs on the side for some people that don't want to be at a table. But we still worship at tables. Yep.
So is that up there, upper left-hand corner of the
Go ahead.
table?
Say that again.
Upper left-hand, is that the worship at table?
No, this is out in our fellowship area. So we have a huge fellowship area. About 40% of our building is just fellowship area. Just open area. And the builders were like, you don't want that much. And we were like, yeah, we do. And every Sunday, I'll get done with the 9:30 service, and people from 8 o'clock are still out there talking. And so it's like, yep, we wanted it. So that's a quick synopsis. I can answer more questions about our church when we get to the end, but I want to get to the meat of what we are. So, like I said, the questions that you ask yourselves are very important. One of the things that I noticed was in our process of coming together as a church, a lot of people would ask this question, who should we reach? And what they meant by that is, let's go after younger people. Let's go after families. Let's go after minorities. Let's go after wealthy people. And they have these targeted approaches of this is who we want to reach. We want to go for that. We want to go for that person way over there. We want to get. And what we found is this: that a better question to ask is who are we equipped to reach? What is the low-hanging fruit all around you? Because too often what I found when I was going and talking to other leaders and talking to other churches, and they were like, well, we need to get more Black people, we need to get more Hispanic people, we need, and I said, well, that's great, but lost is lost. Like, God doesn't give you extra bonus points if you get a Muslim. Like, God actually cares about your aunt who's right next to you who doesn't have a church home and doesn't know Jesus. And so what we tell our people all the time is, who are we equipped to reach? I don't need you going on the street and trying to. There is someone unchurched in your life right now, whether it's in your family, whether it's in your friend group, whether it's at work. Like, there's low-hanging fruit all around you. Stop trying to go for the apple at the top of the tree and just encourage people. Who are the people you're equipped to reach? And so many times I come to this conference and people are like, we got 27 people and they're all 80. And they're like, we need to grow younger. Is that what you're equipped to reach? Because I think a bunch of 80-year-olds, you know who they're best equipped to reach? A bunch of 80-year-olds. and at the end of the day, if next year, instead of having 27 80-year-olds, you have 40 80-year-olds, is that not a win for the kingdom? So stop making this more complicated than it needs to be. Who are you equipped to reach? There we go. Who are you equipped to reach? Who is the low-hanging fruit right around you that you are equipped to reach? And go after them. Stop making it more difficult. Because I'll tell you what, when we started our church, we don't do gimmicks, we don't do mass mailers, we don't do all these videos. We've never done any of that stuff. We've tried trunk or treats once or twice. You know how many people came after we handed out thousands of things? 0. What we've grown in is you invite somebody. And our growth from 7 families to 1,000, has been just people inviting me. And we talk about it, we'll get there in the middle of the event. But, we talk about who's your one more? Who's that one person that's low-hanging fruit right around you that you can invite? And when people bring their one more to church, and then I'm greeting people afterwards, and they're like, Pastor, what's that? And I'm like, awesome, they're here. There's a celebration around that. Because what is going to bring momentum is people getting involved. And when you're saying, we're going after this hard target, we're going after this, don't worry about talking to anybody. We're going to use Facebook algorithms to reach the people who want to read. No, use your people. Just tell them to talk to the people. So, like I said, we're going to talk to each other real quick, because I think this is the best practices thing. There's all kinds of knowledge right here in the room. So, turn to the person near you, introduce yourself real quick, and then I want you to say one invitation tactic that works for your church. You got 2 minutes. Go. One invitation tactic that worked for your church. Introduce yourself to the person next to
Call it friends and family.
Anybody have a fun one that they'd like to share? Anyone have a fun one that they'd like to share?
Barbecue in the park.
Barbecue in the park, great. Anybody else?
We do pints and questions. So if you have a hard conversation with somebody, bring them to pints and questions. We'll have a beer together and let's talk about that.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else?
We do church in a bar sometimes. Church in a bar sometimes.
Church in the bar, yeah.
Sinner.
Anybody else? Yeah,
We do fellowship family fun night
awesome.
in the summer, and it's fellowship family fun, so you are not allowed to drop your child off. You have to stay and be part of the
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
as an activity.
Awesome.
That receives really
Keep
well.
the family together, love it.
We do all the birthdays from our church group. In the church, and we'll ask their families to invite their friends.
Awesome, awesome. Low hanging fruit. Just bring your family. It's not hard. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So, second one. There we go. So, a lot of times when we were starting our church, they really told us, set these big number goals. Like what number goals are you going to set? Are you going to grow by 100 next year? Are you going to grow by 50 in your youth? Are you going to plant 20 churches in 20 weeks? Set these big audacious goals and these number goals and go after these number goals. From day one, my leadership, my board has never held me accountable to any number. They have never said, Justin, we need this more in the plate. We need this many people. From day one, they've held me accountable to one number. Did we have one first-time guest this week? That was it. And in the early stages of our church, when we were just a small church, that was a big deal. It was like, we got one. And from week 1 to today, we have had at least one first-time guest. Now, there were some July 4th weekends I was nervous, but somebody would bring their family, and I'm like, hey, they didn't have to bring their, family that in town. That's a first-time guest in town. It's something new at our church, And so, what we see is this. When everyone's trying to tell you to set all these big number goals and stuff like that, that gets you focused on numbers, and you make decisions based on numbers. When you're trying to get 100 people, you're not focusing on what we focused on, which was this. How do we reach one? We're not worried about reaching 100 people. I'm worried about reaching one. And when I'm about reaching one, that changes everything. Because what I'm saying is, hey, you have a one more, bring the one more, and when they come, I'm going to make sure that they get greeted by 5 people, that they get offered coffee and donuts, that they have somebody sit by, that they're going to meet me and Pastor Bruce, that they're going to get invited to different things. What we do is we just focus on one. If you bring your one more, this is what I can promise we're going to do. This is what I can promise they're gonna experience. And here's what I found. If you just focus on one, you get, you know, this is the same with like restaurants and stuff. You get one happy customer, they'll get you 10 more customers. The people that have invited the most people to our church are the people that have come for 2 weeks. Because they get excited and they're like, I'm gonna bring 3 more people next week. It's like, great. And so what we've seen is, we don't ever set big number goals. We don't do any of that. Because here's what I, you know, like in youth group and stuff like that, what I noticed, and I learned this the hard way, is I can't make kids show up to youth group. Like, we'll say, hey, what do you guys want to talk about next week? And we'll pick whatever topic they want, and then they don't show up because they're like, well, I had a big test. You know, like, you can't make people get out of bed and show up to church. So why are you setting numbers and making everything based on these numbers when you don't really have any control over it? You know what you have control over? When someone does show up, here's the experience they're gonna have. That they're gonna be friendly, that they're gonna be greeted, that they're gonna hear about Jesus, that they're gonna be challenged to grow. This is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna let that take care of itself. We're gonna focus on one. And we're gonna pour into that one and hope that we see more. And I learned this lesson the hard way. When we started Grace Hill, we started in September 25th, 2016. We got to our first Christmas, we had one service. And we got to the first Christmas, and Christmas Eve, I was like, we're gonna do 2 services. You know, like, here they come, you know, like, we've grown by a whole 25, you know, like, I bet we're gonna have 50 people extra, you know, like, and so I was so excited we were gonna do 2 services. And we had the first service and a bunch of people came, and then we did the second service. You know how many people came? 0. So I'm standing there with my band. I have 1 elder, and I have 1 family doing hospitality, and 0 people walked in. And I mean, you talk about like gut punch. And I look at the band, and he was like, what do we do? And the elder and the family that did hospitality were like, well, we weren't at the first service, so like, can we at least like hear a song or something?
Yeah.
And I looked at our worship leader and I said, we're gonna do the whole thing. We're gonna do the whole thing. And I sat there, and as much as I gave it my all and all that, but I went home and I was defeated. Because I was like, we didn't get the big numbers, and I wanted this kind of growth. And I was so worried because our church, so many of them never did Christmas Day worship. And one of the things I said was like, we're gonna worship on Christmas Day. And so I had this idea, we're gonna show up in pajamas, and the kids are gonna lead us in worship. We're just gonna, kids play a little twinkle, twinkle, not jingle bells, or not jingle bells, whatever you want to try to think.
Santa Claus is coming to
No,
town.
Wait a manger.
It's not second.
Look like they that's not
But
good.
the little kids will play like a little keyboard, and we try and sing along. You know, it's like joy to the world. And, we follow along, but we show up in pajamas and stuff. And I was like, this is gonna be a disaster. We had 0 people show up to the second service. Like we had a regular number for Christmas Eve. Like it's gonna be a disaster. And sure enough, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day comes, and like everybody starts showing up in their pajamas, and we all get in there, and we got done with church, and I went to the door to greet people as they leave, and what was incredible was they stayed for like 45 minutes just talking, and I said, this was our dream, like to start a family, and I said, I'm not gonna worry about numbers, I'm gonna focus on like, this is what happened, the people that showed up, they're growing a family, and now like Christmas Day service is huge. Like grandparents come from out of town to see the kid, like it's incredible. And I learned this lesson also when I was in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was the young adult leader, and young adult ministry is wild. Like 1 week you have like 30, and the next week you have 2, and there's no rhyme or reason to it, you know. And so I, prepared this whole lesson, and I was all proud about this lesson, and we were gonna do it. And I had 1 girl show up, 1 girl, and I was like, I literally looked at her and I was like, well, like, just tell me about life, and we'll catch up for a little bit, and then we'll just go home. Like, I'm not gonna do this whole lesson, just because, like. And she was like, yeah. And we talked for like 20 minutes, caught up on life, and then she went home. And so the next day, my senior pastor, he was like, hey, how'd it go? And I said, well, I just had 1 show up. We talked, and I said, home. And then I was like, I wasn't gonna do the lesson for her, like, I'll save it for when there's a bigger group. And he goes, are you kidding me? He goes, you just told her that she doesn't matter. You just told her that, oh, I'm not gonna waste this on you. I was like, oh my gosh. And he goes, whether you get 1 that shows up or whether you get 100 that shows up, you be faithful to your calling. And you give it. You don't care about the numbers. And I'll tell you what, with our youth ministry, I've had to tell our youth leader this multiple times. Because like, we'll have 75 kids one Sunday, and then the next Sunday we have like 30. And it's like, what? we don't sweat that stuff. I don't care about your numbers. Did you connect with the kids? Did you connect with the kids? Did the kids get what we set out for them to get? Then that was a win. That was a win. We did our job. Stop caring about numbers. So, with that, here's your question that you get to ask your friend again. What is one thing, because we talked about we want to focus on new people and just connecting with one. What is one thing you do really well with new people? What is one thing you do really well with new people? At your church that you've seen, you guys don't have anything. Talk to the people next to you. Go. What is one thing you do well with new
Some ideas, just to get our leadership. Yeah.
Anything people want to share? Any good best practices that you want to share of something you do really well with your people?
We tell them thank you for coming.
Okay, yeah.
We feed them.
You feed them. What do you feed them? What food do you get?
That's whatever they want. We have relationships with local, organizations that do fundraising with us.
Yeah.
And we
You send them home with some
we
food?
go there and get the food and bring it and.
Well, that's fantastic.
we feed 'em.
People
So-
eat.
We worship 55 to 60.
Yeah.
And when a new person shows up, when they say, you know they're a new person.
They stand out.
But, like, I have a new board director, he joined last spring, who's here. Why? Because he said, when we came to your church, they've been in wait for 30 years. 5 different people, said hi to them.
Yeah.
They sat with them.
Absolutely.
They go, your church said, we care the fact that you're here
Yeah.
versus, we're just glad you're here. We
Yeah.
care that you're here, so.
So I forgot to say something earlier. When we tell our people, like, invite your one more, and the invitation to Grace Hill isn't just, hey, you should come to my church sometime. That's not an invitation. Nobody's gonna do that. When you invite somebody to Grace Hill, it's, hey, I go to the 9:30 service. I'll meet you at the front door. You can sit with me, or you come in this week or next. That's how we invite them. And that's the words that our people use. Hey, I go to the 9:30 service. I'll meet you at the front door. You can sit with me. Are you coming this week or next? You give them that timeline. And if you already have that relationship and they're looking for a church home and you're curious about Jesus, so many people have said, I said what you said and it works. And it's like, well, I heard it from someone else, not me. But yeah, it works. It works, yeah.
How did you come up with the number of being greeted by 5 different people?
It's just the way it's not a number that we went after. It's just logically where we have people stand. Like we have, like you're no matter what, you're gonna get that person, and this person. So 3 on your way in. And if you go to hospitality, you're gonna get another one. So if you're getting coffee and donuts, you're gonna get another one. And then on the way out, you're always gonna meet me and Pastor Brady. And you're gonna get one more on the way out. So no matter what, you can't get in or out of our building without getting greeted that many times. And then we always open our service with 2 minutes of just get up and go around. And that's a culture thing. Like, that's not easy for people, but we also have a lot of room to do that with tables and stuff like that. But we'll say, hey, get up and make a friend, go meet somebody, welcome somebody to church. And our church, you know, they don't just like stand up and say hello and sit down. Like, people move. And I think there's such thing as positive peer pressure. You know, like when you're standing there, you see everybody else walking around the building, you're like, oh, okay, hi, nice to meet you. So we just create that culture of, hey, we're gonna be, and when we do our starting points, I mean, that's the cool thing. We do something called starting point when you've come to our church and you want to join our church. We don't have like a big class or anything like that. We check a box and you get to come to my house and Pastor Brady's house. We host it, we cap it at like 20 people, and we tell you all about our church. And we ask you your story, and you hear our story, and we just share that, and then we talk about, here's how you can plug in. We've got a folder with all the stuff they need to get on the team and all that kind of stuff. And then like we'll do the kind of Lutheran 101 stuff. We have a class that they could take later about that, but it's like, let's just get you plugged in, let's get you a part of this, and then you'll learn as you grow. And so like everyone new at our church can say like, no, that's not pastor. Like, that's Justin. I know him. I've been to his house. I've seen his kids. I've met his family. I've been to Brady's house. I know them. I'm greeted. And so many people are like, this is one of the friendliest places I've ever been. Because, like, we build that culture. And that's what people are looking for. Yeah.
Statistically, 7 touch points or connections with a person in any organization.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, any other best practices to get you?
I take them out to lunch with my family.
There you go.
Live too far away to invite them to my house.
Absolutely.
But new people go out to lunch with me. I get to know them.
That means a lot.
You can't forget their names. And
Right.
they're my family.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
Since we're set up tear down church, fellowship is really hard to do because I had 2 hours set up tear down Bible study in church. So once a month we go to a local restaurant. I buy all the appetizers and allow everybody to call it Sunday Fun Day to be together.
Yep. If you got the budget, that'll work. All right. Mindset number 3. This is a big one that we're big on right here. So, a lot of times the question is, what attractive things do people want to do? As you're doing preaching and doing all this, and one of the knocks on large churches is that they soften the theology and soften the message. Some do, and that's fine. But what I have found is there are a lot of Lutheran churches that they don't do this, they do this. What are the heavy things that people need to hear? When I told you that we put those white sheets up and we put everything around, one of them was preaching. And I let these people weigh in on the preaching, and they were like, I am so sick of going to church, and nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about this. They're like, this is what my kids are actually coming home and talking about, that they got furries, and they have the litter boxes in the bathrooms, and like, I've never had a pastor talk about this, but that's what's going on in my family. Or, you know what, our marriage is struggling, and the pastor always acts like all our marriages are saved. These are the things, and they were like, we need you to talk about this stuff. I mean, like, as awkward as it is, we did a Song of Songs series, and we did weeks. And, I'll say ahead of time, I'll say, this is a PG-13 sermon coming up in 2 weeks, PG-13. Kids are not in here, and we did like 2 weeks on intimacy in a relationship, and we got in all the details. And I can't tell you how many times I'm in marriage counseling, and like the first 2 sessions is all about like you leaving some milk on the counter all the time. And finally by the 3rd session, they're like, we haven't had sex in 2 years. I'm like, that's a big deal. And you know how many marriages in your church are struggling in those ways, and you're never getting down to talk about the real things that they need to hear? And so, like, I think too often in our churches, we think that like the battle is like our people are out there and they're like, I'm reading my Bible 5 minutes every day, and I just can't find the strength to do 15 minutes. That's my big battle. And it's like, no, she's out there going, you know what? Me and my husband got in a fight 3 days ago, and we haven't talked since, and I'm worried that we're not going to fix this and we're getting divorced. That's what's going on in their lives. And we act like, oh, how can you find more time for prayer? They're like, I don't even have time for my kids. My family's a mess. We're not even eating dinner together. I don't even know what's going on in my kids' life. And so what I found was this, like, you think getting into these things is going to be hard, or people are going to go, I can't believe you use that word in church? Watch. Not that one. Don't watch that. But I'll say this. You go real with them one Sunday and watch how many people they bring next week. You tell them, hey, we're going to do a real talk sermon series, and we're going to talk about the real things going on in your life, the real things that are happening, the things that your kids are going through, the things that they're experiencing, and watch how many people they'll bring. Because people are sick and tired. I mean, like all this AI stuff, I know I got the AI guy over here, but I was just at a conference with Kerry Newhoff, and he's coming out with a book on AI, how AI will be the new God in 2 years. Because when you think about what God does for people, God answers questions that we don't know, God is there for a relationship, and God is there to give us truth. What are people going to use AI for the next years? Well, I need to know the truth. ChatGPT, tell me what the truth is on this. ChatGPT, I'm all alone, so I'm just going to talk to you and have a relationship and conversation with you. Hey, I don't know what to do in this big life decision. ChatGPT, what do you think? People are going to create this. And so we need to be out in front of this. We need to be talking about these things. We need to talk about getting kids out of this stuff. Your parents in your church, they desperately need you to be real with them about how to talk about these things. And we cannot be afraid of talking about the hard things. Because I'll tell you what, in our church, the heavy things bring so many people to our church. They want to hear this truth. They want to have real conversation where you don't treat them like they're already like got it all figured out, where you treat them like they're struggling people that need Jesus every day. And then when you talk about these things, and you're like, hey, next week we're going to talk about pill addiction. And you're like, I'm sure nobody here. Yeah, they are. And then they'll bring 3 friends that they know that are struggling. So talk about heavy things. So I just want to encourage you to not be afraid. And look, I know some of you are like, well, Pastor, if I did a whole sermon about intimacy in a marriage, like, that would make everybody uncomfortable. Okay, well, yeah, it was uncomfortable for me to preach it. But I had 10 marriage counseling sessions that signed up right after that. So I don't think our church is the only church that struggles in this way and needs you to be bold enough. And I'll tell you this, if you're not the pastor of your church, great. It was my people putting on that sheet for me, this is what I want you to talk about, that encouraged me that I need to go there. And if you went to your pastor and was like, this is what people need to hear, and I got your back, go there. Hopefully, I would hope, he would go, and he would do it, because he wants to help too. So, in your little groups, talk about what is one sermon series that really was impactful for you, or one sermon series that you think your church really needs to hear. Go! something they think their church is interested in hearing? Or should hear?
We have one called God, Are You There?
Okay. To answer the big doubt questions.
Are you there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We did one on being neighborly.
Okay.
And we had them start out by physically drawing their house and the neighbors that are around them.
Yeah.
And then saying, like, every week giving them a task. So the very first week, go out for a walk and get to know your neighbors' names.
Right.
Did a survey at the beginning, survey at the end to see the difference, and it was pretty staggering how much
Awesome.
our people got to know the people
To
around
not
them.
just be hearers of the word, but be doers.
Yep.
It's a big deal. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? Yeah.
We had a sermon series on guardrails.
Okay.
And they were, the sins that people
Yeah.
are
Struggling with.
struggling with.
Yeah.
And then we would, our pastor wouldn't actually have a Bible study, but then come back during fellowship time
Mhm.
and talk about it. People would open up and share things in their lives that would
Awesome.
be.
Yeah, I think when we're assuming that all the people that are struggling are out there and we in here got it all together, that we're missing the boat. Like every one of us needs Jesus every day. I remember doing a sermon about pornography and another one I did on like anger and kind of manipulation in marriage and stuff like that. And it was very hard and disappointing to have people set up meetings with me afterwards. But like, cause it was just like, oh man, like your wife is calling me, like we're friends, but like she's saying you're screaming at her and throwing things, that you're angry, like let's work on this. But also to actually know what's really going on in their lives and to be able to help is a huge deal. And it's hard, but that's what our calling is to walk through this messiness together. Because we're all struggling. We all have our hard points. And your people are not finished products. They need this every day. They need this every day. And they also need to know that they're not in this alone. It can't be pastor on the stage going like, well, I've got it all figured out. And you like there's a line to what you lay out there, but like that I tell my people all the time, I'm one sinner leading fellow sinners towards Jesus. Like this isn't about me, it's about him. Let's go after him. And we have a cross right there, that's why I put that way. So anyway, so awesome. The next point. Should we start a bunch of new things? So many times when you're like starting to grow or trying to grow, it's about, hey, let's start a bunch of new programs. Let's start, let's start a common ministry. Let's start, like this ministry and that ministry and that ministry. And what we found was this, that instead of doing that, we just said, what are we capable of doing? Like, we would have people that come up and they're like, hey, I'll start this ministry and I got $2,000 towards it. It's like, okay, but I have nothing to put around that. I don't know that I have a bunch of volunteers to put around you. I don't know that we can build a team out of that. I don't know that we can do that well. So let's push pause on that. And so many times it's like, whoa, somebody offered $10,000 and wants to start this ministry. Okay, but if we can't do it well, then we're not going to do it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to invest our time and resources and staff and ability and everything on things we can do well. And what I found to be helpful is do less things well. Do less things well. That if you only have 5 things that you do, but you do them all well, it is way better than doing 25 things poorly. Because, and what I found is this, like, we don't have like a lot of affinity things, like, just kind of those subcategories, whatever you want to call them, like a softball team and all this kind of stuff. Because what I found is this, people get attached to that thing. And then when you cut that thing, they're like, hey, that thing that I loved, that you cut that. And you're like, okay, there was only 2 of you quilters, like for the last like 20 years, and you have 7 closets full of quilts that we don't use. Like, but you cut that thing that they were, because Andy Stanley said this, what you attract them with is what you attract them to. And if they're attracted to that program and not the church, then when we cut it, it's a problem. Like, we had a softball team for a little while, and it was a whole bunch of the Sunday widow husbands, that would let their wife go to church and their kids go to church and they don't show up. They started joining the team and the wives were really excited. They were like, oh man, now my husband's hanging out with you, pastor, and all this kind of stuff. But the kind of like the core Grace Hill guys, we had some major injuries. We had like a torn Achilles. We were too old to be doing this. We had a torn rotator. So I was like, once I tore my ACL, I was like, this is church softball. Like, well, we're done with this. And you know what? We never saw any of those dads. They never came through the softball, and they never came after. Like, and they were like, well, you canceled softball. And it's like, well, you weren't a part of this in the first place. And it caused all this division. And so what we started saying is this: when we have the people, the resources, one of the ways I talk about it is like the cloud. You know, in the Old Testament, as God is leading the people, He leads them by a pillar of fire at night and a cloud by day. And there were times where like the cloud would move and the people were sitting there and they probably were like, we're good here. Well, okay, the cloud moves, we gotta go. And then there are times where you kind of want to go, but the cloud's sitting. And you're like, okay. And it's the same thing with some of these programs. Like, you gotta go where the cloud goes. When God wants a new program to start, it's gonna be obvious. You're gonna have people coming forward, you're gonna get teams rallied around it, there's gonna be support for it, there's gonna be a plan in place, and you're gonna go, the cloud's moving, let's do this. But if the cloud's not moving, it's okay to say, it's not ready yet. We are not capable of doing it well yet. And examples, like, I had a whole bunch of people come to me about refugee ministry. And I was like, well, we need some more, like, that's a big deal. And sure enough, they got like a dozen families together, and I was like, all right, we're gonna start a refugee ministry, and that was awesome. Same thing with prison ministry. I had like 2 guys come forward, they were like, we wanna do a prison ministry. I was like, that's great. You need to get more people together, we need to get a better plan together. And it took about a year, but then they got about 8 guys together, and now that ministry is thriving. We're going down and we're preaching at in the prison, which is wild. Like, they just walk you in. Like, and that, you're just in there. Like, everybody's around. You're like, you got one guard with you. Like, we're just in the main area, they're pumping iron and stuff. And, like, yeah, anyways. But yeah, we go in and we lead worship, and then there's guys in the halfway house, and we go and we pick them up and we bring them to our 11 o'clock service, and they're an incredible part of our church, and we're so glad they're there. And but we only do the things we can do well. For the first 4 or 5 years, we didn't do small groups. And everybody was like, you grow through small groups, you grow through small groups, you gotta get your small groups going. And I kept saying, we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. We don't have enough leaders to do this well. And I'm not just sending people loose to just have no idea what's happening in the small groups and what they're talking about. I'm waiting until I have enough leaders to do it well. And we've been like 4 or 5 years. We still don't have like a women's or men's ministry because we don't have the leader. And it's like, well, there's Bible studies, there's things you need to be a part of. And if you're like, well, you can't grow without that, okay, we have. So, like, you wait to do things well. And you can't be afraid of saying, like, it's not the right time for that. And so, I think the big part of that is the more you can invest in the things that you do well. There's a leadership podcast I was listening to, and he was talking about this, and he said, organizations that have, like, core things that they do. Watch when, and this is in the business world, but watch when they start to diversify and try to do a bunch of things that aren't them. Like if Chick-fil-A all of a sudden came out and said, like, we're gonna start hamburgers. Is that their thing? No. They have made a living on what? Unbelievable chicken sandwiches and sweet tea. You know, so like, just stick with what you're good at. Have good core things that people can come be a part of. Do them well. Don't try and, you know, like everybody like tries to say, you know, like, well, what about Paul with the Greeks and the, you know, okay, but pay attention to that verse. He says, when I was with this group, I was like I immersed myself in that culture. He doesn't say at all times I was all things to all people. He says, when I was with this group, I was all in. I immersed myself. I did this. But then when I was with this group, I was all in and I learned their culture and I did this. You can't be all things to all people. And when you try and do a whole bunch of ministries, all you're going to do is burn out everyone and do them all poorly. So do a couple things well and let your church be known for those couple things, whatever they are. So, in your own groups, talk about what is one thing your church does really well. What is one thing your church does really well? excited to hear all of these good things that your church does. Anybody want to shout them out? What's something your church does well?
Campus ministry.
Campus ministry. Awesome. Where at?
Campus Lutheran and Columbia.
Awesome. Keep it up.
Quilting ministry.
Quilting ministry. All right.
We have a
Barbecuing.
men's,
Barbecuing? Yep. Where would it go? Who was talking? Yep.
we have a men's group that meets on Saturday morning via Zoom. We
Awesome.
do a Bible study.
Awesome.
It's been successful for years.
Yeah. Nobody's got to get up. They can just sit there.
Yeah.
We have an upward basketball program.
Yeah. Awesome.
So
Awesome.
that brings community.
Food bank.
Food bank.
Youth
Great.
food bank.
Awesome. Yeah.
Disaster response.
Disaster response. Awesome. Shut-ins. Awesome.
Sponsoring our school.
Sponsor.
Oh, the public school.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, awesome. And here's the thing. So many times we have something that we do really well, and we're like, okay, but we got to do something else. Dude, why not just build on your success? Why not just build on the thing that's going well? Why not get more people involved? Why not expand it to 2 schools? But like, if you're doing something well, keep doing it well. Stop going after, well, we need 10 more things. One of the hard lessons we just learned, we're growing and we want to start a multi-site, and I really want to start it for our 10th anniversary this September. And, we've gotten together as a team and we've talked, and it's like, it's not ready. It won't be ready. We could do it, but it's not going to be done well. And so, fortunately, I had to say fine, and so we've pushed it off to next year, but we're continuing to work on that. We're continuing to grow it. Yeah.
I think one of the traps that we fall into is, we're the Southern Bible Belt. And so we have a lot of non-denominational Baptists they're huge churches, right?
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh, they're huge, let's do what they're doing.
Right, exactly.
And we don't want to do that.
No.
We want to stay true to ourselves, and like you said, do what we are good at.
Right.
And that will draw.
Yeah, and we can keep saying that we shouldn't compare ourselves, but we do. We do. And yeah, we got Church X down the street that's, offering all these kinds of ministries, and people are like, when are we gonna have that ministry? When are we gonna have that ministry? That is the tie. But like we were just talking about, there's nothing wrong with someone having a passion for that. And instead of saying no, just say, here's what we need to do to start it. And and like you just said, if they go, oh, that's too much work, okay, that wasn't the right person. But if they go, I'm on it, I'm gonna get 7 more people, and we're gonna, awesome. Then we're capable of doing it well. So you don't have to tell your people no, you just have to have standards of, this is what we roll out, and it has to meet these standards before we roll it out. And so excite them and help them and say, what can I do to help? How can I get people around me? How can we do that? Because we want new things to start, but we want to do them well. So, all right, last one. And then I'll open it up to questions about it. How do we fix what isn't working? So many people ask us, how many, at Grace Hill, sure, we have a ton of things that aren't working. How do we fix what isn't working? The question that we ask instead is, what should we stop doing? What should we stop doing? Too many churches, and I've been around a lot of churches, too many churches have these dying programs. And instead of just letting it die, they weekend at burning it and, pop it up and all that. People are like, no, that looks dead. Just let it die. Just let it die. Because here's the thing, you can't do new things well if you have no margin. And one of the leaders that I listen to, he said, at the start of every year, everybody comes up with a couple resolutions. I'm going to start these 3 new things. He said at the start of every January, I decide 3 things I'm going to stop doing. Because I know I can't start anything new until I make more margin, until I make more space. And I need to stop doing the things that aren't working before I can start doing new things that will work. And so this is something that, at Grace Hill, I might be too quick to punt on things, but we have stopped doing more things than we have started. Like, we will try something, and in 1 month I'll be like, not working, let's go. And people are like, let's give it 2 months. And I'm like, we can, but it's not gonna work, let's go. And let's not be afraid to say, didn't work. Didn't meet the criteria we have. And that's the thing, if you have no criteria of what it's supposed to be, then you didn't start it well in the first place. There ought to be some type of understanding of this is what we're going after, this is the goal. And once again, it shouldn't be numbers. It shouldn't be numbers. It should be the quality of what it is. This is what a successful this looks like. This is the outcome that we see. And if it happens with one person, great. And they will bring more into it. But you have got to not be afraid to stop doing what's not working. And this goes towards programs, this also goes towards people. I mean, what we do at Grace Hill with staffing is we bring the right people on the bus. And if they're the right person on the bus, we put them on the bus and we find a spot for them. That more important than skill set is the right person, the right character. Because I can teach you skills, but I can't teach you character. And we get the right people on the bus. And when they're not the right people on the bus, we have fired people. You need to make that decision, you need to let them go. Because here's the thing, you need to build your people up, you need to find ways to grow them in their skills and their abilities. But if you have somebody that is not working, like, you can invest all those types of resources, but at the end of the day, if they're not gonna work out, and you hold on to them for 3 years, you've just wasted so much opportunity. And you're like, well, who's gonna do that job? Exactly. Cut them loose and find someone that can do that job. And at Grace Hill, like, we don't just look for warm bodies. Like, we had a youth position open for 2 years. And you know what? I did. On top of everything, I did. And I was like, this is too important of a position to get the wrong person. We will wait. And then God was very good, and that person walked in the door, and it was obvious day one. It was like, you're in, and so you need to not be afraid to stop doing what's not working. And if it's people, if it's programs, whatever it is, you are just wasting your time. Because here's another thing, is sometimes you get, like, let's say you have an associate pastor, and like you're the senior, and you're like, well, I don't want to invest so much into them because then they're just going to go off, and if they get really good, then someone else is going to take them and stuff like that. Okay, but can you afford to not help them get good? Can you afford to hold on to somebody that you don't train up to be good? Like, hey, nobody wants them. We'll hold on to them. Like, invest in people. Keep doing what's working. And if they leave, they leave. But like, you've got to stop doing what's not working. So with that, your one question that you get to ask is, what is one thing that you should stop doing? And if you're not in charge of your church, maybe it's personal. What is one thing that you should stop doing? Go.
One of the things we just
Anybody want to share something that they're going to stop doing? Or they should stop doing?
Counting numbers.
3-hour meetings, that's a good one. Anybody else? Something they're going to stop doing?
Youth.
You're going to stop doing youth?
senior high youth.
Okay.
We don't have a program, it doesn't work, and we have a sister church that we could join with that has a phenomenal program.
There you go. There you go. Spend your resources on what you do well, and yeah, partner with somebody else. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else? Something they should stop doing. Great. Awesome. Okay, I want to make sure that I open it up to questions. Anything is open. Like I said, like we've experienced a lot of growth. If you looked at this and you're like, you really didn't say anything that, ground shaking. No, like I think one of the things that we've done well is we've kept it simple, and we've made the main thing the main thing. And the growth that we've experienced and all of that, it's not because we're there you go. I'm saying right anymore. It's not because I'm some genius. Some of you went to school with me. You know I'm not. It's simply we focused on the things that we felt like were the things that we should focus on, were the things that would matter, and we've seen that bear fruit. And so if there's any questions, yeah, go.
What are your 3 pastoral inspirations, the leader pastors that your top 3 that you kind of look at?
Oh, absolutely. Joby Martin down in Jacksonville, Carrie Newhoff, and then Matt Chandler are kind of the guys that I look at and listen to. And when they're at a conference, I look forward to hearing what they say.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What's the governance structure of your church?
So we have a 9-person board, and it's a polity system, and well, we kind of have our own hybrid.
That's what.
So we brought in a consultant, and Grace Hill does everything our own way. Like they're like, here's your blueprint, and we're like, we'll take that. So it's our own system, but basically it's a governance system where they create the box, and I'm free to move within the box. And they just set those parameters. Don't go over budget. Don't do anything that's going to get us in trouble. If you fire somebody, run that before us. And then our president and I, we get together every other week and just sit down and talk. And she's like, where are you at with things? What are you thinking? And so there's just a lot of open communication. But I mean, like, our board is incredible. Like, she is the CFO of a Fortune 500 company and still consults all over the country for something. So like when she's like, hey, I think you should do this, I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. So we have our own kind of little hybrid that we do it, but it's very open, but yet there's clear boundaries and distinctions. So, yeah.
You guys have done some really cool sermon series. What have been some of the most impactful ones? You mentioned a lot of like marriage and family type stuff, but yeah, you do a lot of stuff. What have been big impact ones for you guys?
Well, we just did a 6-week on discipleship to start off the year about like, what does it look like to follow Jesus? And we really had at the end of each sermon like a not just a hear, but a doer thing. And that was really cool because a lot of people are like, I'm taking that step, I'm doing that thing, I'm taking that next step of following Jesus. We've done some of every 4 years when the political climate heats up, I do a series on politics. Like, we're not afraid to talk about it because Jesus calls us to be involved in politics, to vote and to be a part of it. And so I tell everybody, like, if you're going to vote blue or red, so long as you can stand before the Lord and say, this is why, because I believe that God calls me to vote this way based on these things, and these are the things on my heart. And we openly go into it. And people always, as we get into it, are like, and then we come out of it, 3 or 4 weeks later, and they're like, man, no, like you just took the tension and you just went, like we can be brothers and sisters. Because what I tell them all the time is, if we in this house can't figure out how to be blue and red together with the banner over us being Jesus Christ, then there's no hope for the world. So like, if we can't figure it out here, then we're in trouble. So we're going to figure it out here. And so like, politics is always one that I think you should really get into. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Marriage and family, but being real about it. And then, I did a 7 deadly sins one. Like going through the 7 vices and like just being real about it, but at the end of each one talking about, and here's how you can get help, and here's how you can get help. And we saw our counseling really take off. So, yeah.
Your characteristics of your church,
yeah, how
has that played out, or what are the things that you do to carry that into your youth ministry experience or your kids ministry experience?
It's the exact same.
Okay, so like they're gathering at tables too.
When we get together, like we are growing in relationship with each other, and we're growing in a relationship with Jesus, and we are real with them. Like, there's nothing worse than getting your high schoolers together and talking about like, how do we be nice to a kid that's being bullied? Like, that's important.
Right.
But like, they're dealing with bigger stuff than that. They're dealing with, you know, like real adult stuff. And so like, we talk about that in youth group, and we'll give parents a heads up. Like, hey, this week we're talking about vaping. This week we're talking about sex. This week we're talking about cutting ourselves and body image thing. Like, if you're not going to talk about what the kids are actually struggling, you're missing the point. If they're showing up, and that's the thing. If you talk about the real things, they will bring friends. Like when we do the body image thing, you know, like the girls bring a ton of people. Like they all come together because that's what they're struggling with, you know. Yeah, so we take what we do and we put it in that level. And even with the kids, like we don't do like a VBS. Like our week-long thing is all about serving. Like we do something called Our City. Our kids stay right in town all week, and we camp out at we have a K through 12 Lutheran school. And we camp out there, and we go and serve in our city all week. And we just serve. And even with the little kids, they don't spend the night. But we do 9 to 12, and every day it's a serve project that we bring to them, and they get to serve. And we still have the fun games and all that. But like, we're gonna, even at the little level, teach, like, this isn't about us, we're here to serve. So we try and incorporate it in everything. So, anybody else, questions?
Thank you. I was gonna say, just thank you for the words you.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I'm sure, yeah.
Your starting point, are you using Andy Stanley's model, or you come up with your own?
No, it's just something we do.
Okay.
So week 1 is all just stories. So we just sit there and we go, if you are a talker, you only get 5 minutes. If you're not a talker, you gotta go at least 30 seconds. But we just wanna hear everybody's story.
Mhm.
And everybody shares their story. How did you get here? What's your, where are you at theologically, you know? And then the cooler thing is the whole staff's there, and we share our stories. So it's not just like, oh, that's the youth director. Like, they know Shelby's story. They know my story.
Mhm.
And we're open about that. And that's week 1. And then week 2 is where we just tell them, like, we give them the folder and we're like, if you want to get on a team, like, this is what it's all about. And we have a covenant that we sign. So every year we have a membership renewal.
Mhm.
So, like, if you join our church, we call it the family. If you join our family, like, every year you get a re-up. Every year you can hop off if you want. It's a yearly, and at we have one voter meeting a year, our family meeting, and it's full. Like, our sanctuary's full. Like, everybody shows up, and at the end of it, we say, here's the 7 things that you committed to. Like, that, are you gonna do it again? They say, I will, and then we do it. And so, like, that's what we kind of walk through in that second day. Like, this is what it's all about, this is how you get on a team, this is the app to get, and then we send them on their way. So, yeah.
Okay.
But it's awesome to get people in your house and you get to know them and to hear their stories. Because you see all these new faces. And I mean, like, yeah, we're having to do it like twice a month right now. We're booked through May. But like, you see all these new faces and it's like, well, who are they? You know, like, and then to have that chance to hear a little bit of their story and then connect them with other people. Yeah, we're going over it. If anybody wants to leave, feel free, go ahead. But anybody else have a question? If you want to be first in line for lunch, go for it. All right. Hey, blessings on your ministry. Thank you so much for being here. If you have questions, come on up and I'll be around.